Hi, I'm Elton John. Rocket Man. You know what goes good with a ukulele and Elton John's Rocket Man? Death. Gore mixtapes. They're kind of an iconic part of the internet, let's be honest. Watching people die is something that just every edgy teenager needs to do at some point in their life. But before the internet, how did people do that? People had to have done that, right? Well, if we go back a few hundred years, they'd probably just kill somebody. Or, get, put into the military. That happened a lot. If we go to the 90s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we had the wonderful shockumentary. Now, shockumentaries and gore mixtapes are different things, but in reality, shockumentaries are basically some shockumentaries are essentially the proto-gore mixtape, specifically the Mondo film style of them. And one of the most iconic examples of this is Traces of Death. 1978, Faces of Death came out, and it was basically a gore mixtape. Of 90% of it was fake. Faces of Death, after its success, had a bunch of clones made of it. We had Faces of Gore, Faces of War, just a lot of faces of movies. But the one that was probably the most successful of the ripoffs was, in fact, Traces of Death. Traces of Death is Faces of Death, but everything is real. Almost everything is real. We'll get to that, but for right now, everything is real. And we have a wonderful America's Funniest Home Videos narrator.
Ever wondered what the inside of a leg would look like, sprayed, splayed, and filleted like a side of beef? Well, now you know.
So, yeah, unfortunately I can't show you anything without it being blurred to hell and back, because, also, by the way, sorry, Lamp's here now. Yay. But, after my last video was age restricted for me saying one word, twice, I'm gonna be a little bit more paranoid about that, because it essentially killed the view count on my longest, video at that time. So, pretty pissed about that, but unfortunately I can't show you uncensored footage of people dying for this video. So sad. But you can find a movie on Internet Archive if you want to check it out yourself. Yeah, so Traces of Death is basically one of the most iconic and hardcore shockumentaries out there. It was released in '93, and it was a compilation of all sorts of stuff written and directed by America's Funniest Home Videos. I'm kidding, it's written and directed, well, not really directed, but written and created by Damon Fox and narrated by him too. And his narrating makes it feel like a fucking America's Funniest Homes episode. And in reality, the narrator is really the only reason I like this, along with how old it feels. Traces of Death is a really weird watch because it's kind of charming in the most fucked up way humanly possible. I'm not saying that it's hey, morally good, but it uses literal, bad Google Slides transitions in the 90s to show you pictures of, dead people, and with the god-awful narration, and the, inconsistent volume of him talking and stuff. The entire thing is just a total goddamn mess. It's friggin' awful, but it's quite interesting, to say the least. From footage of Bud Dwyer's suicide from two angles to, footage of just all sorts of surgeries, from sex change surgeries to just brain surgery on an infant. There's no shortage of gruesome visuals in this little release here. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's the most entertaining thing, though. You see, I know this may come as a shock, but after watching 3 surgeries, its impact kind of fades, and it's just basically, if the narrator isn't talking, all we're hearing is shitty, intense synth music. Now, the sequels apparently have metal music. I'm only talking about the first. I have yet to watch any of the sequels, but I thought that the first would make for an interesting video. But there's 5 of these, so I didn't really think it'll be worth talking about 5 of essentially the same thing being done over and over. That being said, in the chance you are interested, the third one we get a different narrator, so yippee for that. But in reality, the narrator, like I said, is pretty much one of the only reasons I actually had fun watching this. He's just really stupid. Like, the narration is god awful. It's like, look at this meatball. Imagine if he wasn't dead. Obviously, this is made, like, so it's such a morally fucked movie. Like, it's made of just about the worst taste humanly possible. I wouldn't necessarily be like, if I met the guy that made it, I wouldn't be like giving him a fist bump and being like, I love your work, man. Because, well, yeah, no, it's a pretty shitty thing to make such a movie. Earlier on, I mentioned that the vast majority of the footage is real, but that we'd say that all of it was real for the time being. Now, at the time, I believed all of this was in fact real. A lot of the footage, and like 99% of the footage is. There's one clip, to my knowledge, that's believed to be fake. There might be two, but the one that I'm aware of, like almost 100%. So the final clip in the movie is the mauling of Pit Durnitz, and this footage is, its legitimacy is debated. People are like, this is from Savage Man, Savage Beast, which I believe that is 100%, but the debate of if it's real or not is still kinda around. Personally, I lean toward fake. There's just a lot of weird little things about the footage. Yeah, so I'm leaning toward it being fake, but even if it is, it's certainly realistic, and potentially upsetting footage. I would like to briefly say, so usually I swear off true crime for, like, these reasons. This isn't true crime, this is me talking about a shockumentary, but I do just want to say, like, I'm talking about the movie, and I mean, like, usually I find this type of thing very disrespectful to all the victims, and this movie is. So all the victims of the suicide and the murder and all this, may all those victims rest in peace. And may all the animals that were killed in this movie also, because, fun fact, we have animal cruelty in this movie. I usually kind of like, I don't like when movies just have unnecessary animal cruelty. I do find it amusing that 99% of the reviewers are like, that's the worst part, and you're watching footage of, like, people getting killed. But, it's certainly uncomfortable and just wildly inhumane and wrong, and I hope all the animals rest easy as well. Like I said, very poor taste movie, animal cruelty, suicide pictures, all sorts of stuff with this goofy ass narration over top it. But also, like I said, it's an interesting, important part of extreme cinema history, and it's one that I do genuinely think is worth the watch if you're part of the scene. This is not something that you'd want to start off with if you're trying to get into the scene, though. I will make that abundantly clear. Despite the fact that it is overall a little goofy because of the narration, this is pretty fucked. It goes dark and deep, and I advise that if you do ever plan on watching this, just put it off for a good while if you're new to the scene, because you don't want to jump in with this one. Ultimately, I would like to say, just putting on my little critic hat for a second, 79-minute runtime is excessive, because ultimately, since so much of the movie is just, like, muted footage of surgery or surgery footage without audio or autopsies, it's just fucking boring. Which I know is like a horrifying thing to say, but ultimately the biggest problem with it is it's like really fucking boring when the narrator isn't being stupid and insensitive. There's just like not much going for this movie besides its importance to the scene of extreme cinema. Really quickly, I'll, as I like to do with a lot of these kind of controversial movies, read a review giving it a high rating and a review giving it a low rating. There aren't any 5-star reviews that are more than like one sentence just saying like, ha 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 ha, dead body. So I found a 4-star review by user Austin Miller 96 saying the real deal. It actually says the Reed deal. I don't think that was intentional, but so the real deal. Obviously, this movie and its sequels are always going to be compared to the Faces of Death series, as they both have exactly the same subject matter: real footage of death, of people being killed or seriously injured in various different ways: suicides, animal attacks, accidents, etc. The difference being that while all of the Faces of Death movies are comprised of fake footage and staged footage, the creator of the movies himself has said that around 70% of the footage is fake, and the stuff is real and mostly consisted of already dead bodies and autopsies. Everything you see in Traces of Death is 100%. It's a fascinating documentary, but do not watch Is You Are Easily Offended, or cannot handle watching footage of dead bodies, graphic medical procedures, or actual human and animal deaths. Well, we have a 1.5-star review by Chantel. Probably Chantel. Haven't looked away or skipped a scene in a while. Thankfully, this hasn't gotten mainstream, so the wannabe edgy and quirky people would want to watch it. Well, this is perfect for the Faces of Death community. I'm looking at all the British. But this isn't for me. Not educational. I've already saw a surgery made on live on Instagram, LMFAO. The sex reassignment was disgusting, sure, but that's why I don't want to be a surgeon. I also know and heard stories about surgeons filming their patients while on surgery. I wouldn't mind it, but I would like to be paid. Damn, all the surgeries shown were 80s footage, and I'll just keep it at that. Watch the entire franchise since I had this on my watch list in 2019. And then since that's a little bit of a janky review, I'll read you one more by user Vans, who gave it 1 star. Hands down the filthiest, goriest, and most disturbing movie you could possibly watch. Let me give you some scenes I just witnessed while watching this one. Real-life suicide videos and images, actual autopsy of human, animal cruelty. This part made me cover my eyes, it's too inhumane. Murder, massacre, genocide pictures. Graphic close-up surgeries, that sex change surgery just fucked me up, etc. The fact that this film was released in 1993, a time where the internet wasn't accessible for everyone. It says it isn't, but I think it wasn't. A time where websites like LiveLeaks, Ogrish, and BestGore, do not even fucking visit that site, aren't even a thing. This movie could be the most fucked up thing you will come across with. It will make you fear the concept of death, just like what the movie says at the beginning. Not for the squeamish, not for the faint of heart. There's nothing here but absolute filth. Watch at your own risk. Like I said, people are kind of split. A lot of gore horse type of people, crazy extreme cinema people, they quite like it. And then there's the common person who stumbles across it because yippee to the disturbing movie iceberg that Wendigoon covered, that are, massive haters. Personally, I'm, once again, as I am with most of these things, kind of in the middle. Like I said, found it an interesting little time capsule of extreme cinema, because when we think of extreme cinema, we usually think of like 2000s and onward movies. This was 90s, so it's interesting for that. But ultimately, it's boring, it's in the worst taste, and it's just not of any real value. You're not going to get educated from watching this surgery footage, to say the least. Traces of Death is a 1993 film directed and narrated and written by Damon Fox, and it's kind of one of the most filthy, trashy pieces of film I've ever watched, but ultimately it's one that I'm not going to forget for a very, very long time. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting. I don't necessarily recommend that you check out the movie, but I guess that's up to you now, isn't it? But I do hope you enjoyed. I thank you for your time, especially if you made it this far, and I will be seeing you. Hopefully. Bye-bye.